Hello, guys, and welcome back to another installment of Galley Stories of Bering Sea and beyond. I am your host, Mark Kaler. And today we have Captain Camron Hagen. He captains the vessel Kachemak Provider. Currently, I think, was tendering up in the Bristol Bay. But Cameron, how are you doing today?
Doing great.
All right, let's talk about it. You've listened to a few episodes. Where were you born and what brought you into the water?
I was born in Big Bear, California, and raised pretty much my whole life in Homer, Alaska. I think I had early ambitions as a kid to go out in the water and go commercial fishing, but my dad never let it take. I had opportunities to go out to Bristol Bay, and my dad just didn't feel right about the opportunities that were thrown my way. So I waited and waited, and finally, my younger brother got a job for a gent called Beaver Nelson, and Beaver Nelson had a couple other guys who moved on to other jobs, and so my brother somehow got me the job. And
Was Beaver Nelson the guy or the boat?
Beaver Nelson was the man. The boat was the Nuka Point at the time, still is the Nuka Point, and I was down in Montana going to school. My brother said, "Hey, there's a job if you want it," and I hopped on it immediately because I've, of course, since high school been wanting to get on the water and was waiting for the next opportunity.
But raised in Homer and not getting out on the water? I mean,
raised in Homer, never got out. I got out in the water once as a kid, and we got beached with the tides, and we got stuck across the bay for a day, 12 hours, whole tide cycle, but never knew how to tie a knot, never knew what a bowline was, never knew what a seiner was, never knew what a seiner looked like, never knew what a seine skiff was, never knew what a longliner was, didn't know a thing. I grew up, my dad was a logger, and when we first got to Alaska, and we made our way just by check, and I never felt poor growing up, but I look back now and realize how poor we were. My dad did whatever he could just to put a roof over our head and clothes on our back, but we always felt rich as kings.
You say he was steering away from the water. Was he trying to get you to be a logger?
No, he wasn't trying to get me to be a logger. What he was trying to
education thing.
What he wanted to do is he knew life on the water. He knew fishermen, and he knew life on the water was a really unique way to make money. But if he knew if his boys were going to get into it, he wanted it to be with the right captain who was going to flourish our careers rather than wreck the whole experience for us. Mm-hmm. And when he heard that we were getting on with Beaver Nelson, he was absolutely thrilled, and so that was our first opportunity. I think my brother might have had one other opportunity before that, but really Beaver was our first real kickoff into the fishing industry.
But that was Bristol Bay?
That was not. That was Prince William Sound, seining, and 3A halibut longlining, actually.
Okay.
My first fishing experience ever was longlining in 3A.
How old were you?
I was 19 years old, and I loved every minute of it. I grew up in sports, and so in wrestling and longlining halibut was like wrestling fish all day long. It was, and it was fun work, and it was exciting, and it was nothing like I had ever experienced.
It's exciting to see what you're pulling up too, when you're longlining, especially.
Oh my goodness!
Because you don't know what's coming.
Especially when I first got out there, I remember the first time I saw these big halibut coming up on the line. They looked like dinosaurs coming up through the water, and I had to gaff them, and my adrenaline was going a million miles an hour, and if I remember correctly, I think I froze up. I saw this fish coming up, and they're like, "Gaff that," and
gaff that motherfucker.
Yeah, and I looked at it and like, oh, and I hesitated. I think I got it still, but once the nose of that halibut hits the water or hits the air,
you either get it or it's gone.
Exactly. I think I got it. We'll just
go with the story.
Yeah, go with the story. I got it. But from then on, I just never wanted to stop. It was the beauty. I got done with that trip, and I got done with that first seining season, and I thought, people get paid to do this? Because growing up with my dad, he was a logger, so we got paid like 25 cents a tree to go and cut it down, chop it up, and turn it into like split cords, and so we grew up manual labor, hard work, digging holes.
I'm gonna say you got 25 cents a tree. Your dad got more than that.
Dad got more than that, yeah.
Daddy did well.
Yeah, he made some money off his 5 boys, yeah. And so, and we grew up hard. My dad, he's a hard worker. He taught us a lot of work ethic. We'd come home from school and we wouldn't do our homework. We'd come home and we would help dig the foundation for our house because it was rotten out. And so we'd come home and get our work clothes on and start digging. And we we also, I remember also, we moved into this house. We finally bought a house and we moved into this house and it didn't have windows for years. We slept in this house with plastic over the windows here in Homer, Alaska, and the winters were frigid. And it was 5 of us boys, and we had one room, and we'd all had different spots in our room that we lived in.
Bush people.
Yeah, lived in different spots. And by the time we woke up for school that next morning, we were all in the same bed with our blankets frozen against the walls, and that kind of life builds character, And so I think we weren't the brightest fishermen when we started out with beaver, but I think he saw that we might have had a little potential in the work ethic.
Before you move too far on, you're talking about pulling these halibut up, and they're looking huge because they're wide fish.
Yeah.
Thin, but wide fish.
Mm-hmm.
What was the biggest one you've seen come on deck?
I always ask beaver and the guys I work with what their biggest fish they ever saw was.
No, your
biggest. Well, the biggest fish that I ever saw, and it took 3 of us to pull it up. I think it was right around 300 pounds. And so,
that'd probably be almost 7 foot long.
Yeah, it was a big fish. Fish. And I for some reason thought I could pull the whole fish up by myself. And then I got the nose above the water, and the guys on deck were like, wait for some help, and we all got a gaff in it and we pulled it up, and I think it landed on me too, and it's amazing. I mean, it literally looked like we were pulling this whale out of the ocean.
So they call a 100-pound halibut a barn door.
Mm-hmm.
What do you call a 300-pound halibut?
I don't know. We called it a
money.
Yeah, we called it money. Yeah, but we had this special hook on board that we always wanted to use, and it was this big, huge gaff about 3 feet long, handmade, and we always wanted to hook it to a picking boom and hook that gaff and lift the fish out of the water and put it on
certain
deck.
That one had it. Yeah.
And we didn't use it on that one because we just wanted to get it on board, but we always were waiting for that 400 or 500 pounder. Times have changed now. That was over a decade ago, so things with halibut, of course, are changing, and so we're kind of gunning for more of the mid-sized halibut. But at the time, that was a winning fish.
To me, the best tasting halibut is going to be between 20 and 40 pounds.
I think you're absolutely right on that, because 20 and 40 pounds, you get a good amount of meat, and and it's not. It hasn't been sitting in the water too long, and that's perfect. That's a perfect size halibut to feed a family multiple times. So.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like a tender, less than that, it's a chicken. Right?
Exactly.
We call them chickens. But, all right. So then moving on from there.
Okay. So after halibut, we would go out salmon seining in Prince William Sound, and like I said before, so on this crew was my youngest brother, and myself, and our best friend, who has been our best friend for well over a decade at that time. So it's been over 25 years now. And so Colin, my younger brother, was the most experienced, and then myself and our best friend Scotty, and we didn't know anything. My brother was the most experienced, and we didn't know anything. And so he's trying to explain to us how this all works. Beaver is trying to make sense, but the way he's describing it is for like an inexperienced fisherman, not the average greenhorn who doesn't know anything about fishing. And so we finally got out there, and we got to Chalmers and Prince William Sound, and that's Montague Island, and we just made a fool out of ourselves for about 3 weeks, and we set the net out, and we didn't know what we were doing, and I think by the time, I think that was a 24-hour fishery, and by the time we got done with that, before we went to Valdez, Beaver had pretty much pulled all his hair out, and what a patient guy to be able to put up with 3 greenhorns who don't know anything, or just running around like chickens with their heads cut off, trying to make sense of what we're doing. Of course, after about a couple of weeks, we really started to kind of get in the groove of it. But that whole first year in Prince William Sound, we were what other boats like to call the A team, or the dream team. We got to Valdez after fishing Chalmers, and this is what really set us apart from other boats was we got to Valdez feeling like we knew our stuff. And then my brother in the harbor, as we're heading into the harbor after our first day fishing in Valdez, falls overboard. And my brother does, and I pull him up back on board. He lost his crock, and so the captain Beaver told the skiff man to go and get his crock out of the water with the skiff.
What's his crock? Explain it for us.
His crock is what most people use on a seiner or boat. It's just a crock shoe. It's got it's the foam rubber and it's got the holes in it. And
so you're picturing it, but these guys don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so I'm picturing this. Yeah, so it's a shoe. It's a little boat shoe, and he lost this precious boat shoe, and you can see it floating in the harbor.
It's not like a crock like everybody talks about Crocs, right? With little holes in them and.
Yeah.
My God.
Like a crock. Like he could go to the store and buy a new crock.
My God.
for like $10.
Okay, all right. We're on the same page now.
Okay, yeah. So shoe. And so the skiff man hops in the skiff to go and get his shoe that's floating in the water because they float. That's why they're such a good boat shoe. And he cuts loose, and we're like heading into the harbor going to the slip. And the skiff cuts loose, and he's going to get that crock full speed. But he's attached to the seine. So we let pretty much half or 3/4 of the seine out in the Valdez harbor as everyone's already there, watching us do this. And we're just holding our heads like,
to get his shoe.
Yeah, and everyone in Valdez harbors, you do something like that, every boat's going to be talking about it. And they were. Every boat was talking about the dream team, how we set the net in the Valdez harbor. And we stacked the net. We put it on board. We all felt like idiots. He got the shoe, though. That's what's important. He got his shoe. We pulled the net up.
I'm not sure I'd even brag about wearing one of those.
So we went to the bar, and we were the most famous crew there. So it was pretty amazing. So I don't want to fast forward too much ahead, but we actually ended up crewing for Beaver for quite a few years, and we became a pretty tight crew and a really, really effective, efficient crew. One of those crews that one person could throw something and the other person doesn't even really have to look. He just knew it was being thrown and he could catch it, and it was.
So no more lost shoes.
Yeah, no more lost shoes, no more nets overboard. A few mistakes here and there, but really, really tight.
So the name of the boat again?
Nuka Point.
Nuka Point, and so several years.
Mm-hmm.
What species? Halibut,
salmon. And that was pretty much it. He did herring before, but he had actually retired from herring. And
where's he at now?
He's in Homer, and he still fishes. He's one of those fishermen who's gonna fish until he drops, probably. I mean, hopefully he doesn't mind me saying that, but he's one of those guys who loves
probably a compliment, really.
Yeah, really a compliment. He loves what he does, and he loves catching fish, and he's also one of those fishermen who's revolutionized the game, and he's really changed it for a lot of people in the sense that what he established in his early career really helped a lot of the younger generation be able to catch fish effectively. It's been a huge impact on my life, my brother's life, and a number of other fishermen's life, for sure.
Where'd you go from there?
So we worked for Beaver for about 5 or 6 years, and then my younger brother and I moved on to the Lady K, which is a seiner out of Prince William Sound. Mark Edens, who is a phenomenal guy, just one of those great captains on the water, great guy off the water, and who was equally as effective at catching fish, but a totally different style. And then, and my wife, and about that time I started fishing for Mark Edens on the Lady K. I met my wife, and we got married.
How'd you meet her? How does a fisherman meet a wife?
That's a really funny story, actually. So,
let's go there.
So my wife,
Grace.
My wife Gracie, she worked she did not fish, did not grow up on the water. She grew up in Homer for the most part. She was born in California as well, and then grew up in Homer, knew about fishing, and knew about how things, worked as far as Homer and being a fishing community. And I came back from a fishing season with money in my pocket and and wanting to actually wasn't even in the mood for a relationship at the time, but I saw her, I met her through mutual friends, and then I just pursued what you would call like a dating relationship with her. And
Where's the funny part of the story? Because you said that's kind of funny how.
The funny part of the story was I was, I think, 20 or 21, she was 17, and her dad is the pastor of a church. And so when I went to go ask her out on a date, she said, "Well, you might have to talk to my dad." And I looked at her like, "Oh, I mean, of course, yes," and
Did you talk to her dad?
I talked to her dad, and he said no. I told him I was a fisherman at Homer, and he's like, "Yeah, no, we're gonna have to get to know each other a little bit first." And so we did. I spent time with her and her family for about a year, and getting to know them, and me, and
You put time into this.
I put time into it. When I met her, I was like, and we got to talking. We kind of talked about what we wanted to do in life, and I was like,
"That's it.
Let's get married. Why not? What the heck?" And she thought the same thing. And so after a couple years of dating, we got married, and then we bought our first boat. So, and that was my last year working with Mark. But leading into that, what I was saying was Grace and I both did a herring circuit on the Valkyrie, which was with Eric Fellows, and that was a good time for us to figure out what life was like on a boat as a married couple. And
so you're both on there.
We're both on the Valkyrie, and we're both doing the herring circuit, Sitka, Kodiak, and Togiak, and she hopped on halfway through Sitka, I think, or towards the end of Sitka, and then did Kodiak and Togiak. And there was many times where we had to figure things out. Living on a boat, especially when you're commercial fishing with a group of other guys, can be hard when you're newly married. And she came out in the boat, and there's a few times we had to go back on the back deck and just argue, and where she got her feelings hurt about something, and I was kind of more or less at the time the deck boss because I had the most experience, but and so she's a stubborn woman, I'm a stubborn guy, a dominant personalities, and I'm telling her what to do on deck, but trying to be gentle. And so anyway, she had to confront me a couple of times, let me know that I was approaching it wrong. And so learning experience for the both of us, you could say. But we had a lot of fun working for Eric, great guy, and we had a lot of fun learning the herring fishery and being a part of that.
It's changed a lot over the years. I mean,
it has. Yeah, that was 8 years ago, so it's changed a lot since then.
Well, it changed a lot since I was doing it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, probably by the time you were born.
Uh-huh.
But okay, so 31 now.
31 years old.
Started at 19. So you got years at sea.
Yes.
You got years of experience. Do you remember the first time you were scared? The first time, not the biggest time. The first
time. The first time I was scared, I would say we were out herring fishing. We were doing Togiak herring. It was a little bumpy, on the way there. It was a little bumpy. It was, not bad. It really wasn't me that I was scared for. It was the first time I got scared commercial fishing was when people run on hydraulics. Hydraulics can be a really powerful, scary thing, especially when you're in a hurry and you're zoned in on the fish. Grace was stacking corks at the time, and corks, the Togiak herring, are actually harder than doing leads. So she was doing corks, and she was having a really hard time with it. Somehow she got wrapped up in the cork line, or wrapped up, and the hydraulics started picking her up in the block. And that was first time I really got scared out commercial fishing. I know there's other points when it was just me and my brother and our best friend where there was times where I got a little startled, but there's times where you dive on a net and there's variables, especially when the boat's right near the bottom, ocean bottom. But that was the first time I really wanted to make sure it was scared in a different way, I guess you could say. I never really.
Your wife's getting pulled up in the
Yeah,
block.
I never got scared, and the captain saw it right away. But it made my heart jump. I never got scared for my life, or my brother's life, or our best friend's life. We could stand on our own 2 feet pretty good, but that was the first time I got scared, and that was a good lesson for me because it made me realize the captain of the boat, is and really responsible for the safety of everyone, and he sets the pace, and he's got a lot of responsibility other than just making money for the crew.
Did your captain realize that?
Oh yeah, he did. He realized it really quick. Back the block back down, got her off, got it uncinched, and it was really no tension whatsoever, But I was in the skiff, and I was just watching. I was outside the box looking.
Did it go slow mo?
Yeah, it was very slow, and I could.
Were you guys married then, or?
We were married then. Yeah,
oh,
newlyweds.
So. Your wife's going up the block.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, newlyweds, and it was a very, the whole season was very fun, and that was a little blip that I could remember that I tried to, make sure that when I become a captain, I remember that so that I could.
Was that the scariest you ever been, or is there another time?
No, there was other times, and
give me the worst one.
The worst one. So we're married, we have kids. I decided.
Please note, he doesn't have to think about this. He's got it right away.
Yeah, we're married, we have kids. I decided to go out pot fishing with again 2 of my best friends, and we went pot fishing on the Magnus Martin, and great boat, high production, peacock pot fishing, 3 of us, and things just clicked. We were just moving quick, and we'd rotate jobs, and we could just make things happen. We're out there, and seas are getting bigger, and I'm running over to get ready to throw the bait in the pot. And we get ready to launch the pot, and I somehow find my way into getting behind the pot launcher, like I'm between the deck rail and the pot launcher, and the pot is on board, and the deck's slippery with bait and everything, and so somehow I'm looking over the edge of the boat waiting for the pot to go overboard, and I somehow I'm a small guy, but I somehow get slipped behind, where the pot is going to pivot up and between the deck rail, and then my friend who's running the hydraulics at the time goes up with the pot, and I'm in between, and so I get pinched in between the block, between the pot launcher and the deck rail, the side rail of the boat.
And it's throwing the pot over.
And and that's a fast motion. He's throwing the pot over, and I just feel it clench tight, and I've already lost my air at this point, yeah. And so I kind of just let out a whoosh of, and it just was tight to where I couldn't even move, and he saw it just in the corner of his eye, and he just stopped, and I'm just sitting there like I'm pinched, pretty bad, I'm pinched, and he comes back down with it. I drop to the deck, and they both come over to me, and captain comes out, and there's, are you okay? And I'm like, I think I'm okay.
So slimy boots just kind of slid you that way.
I think we're moving so fast. I got excited. I didn't know where I was at on the deck rail. Just a really, as someone would say, a really stupid mistake, and really silly. But one of those mistakes that can happen to anyone. And I got in the bite, and I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and luckily, the guy running the hydraulics was phenomenal. He has lots of big pot fishing experience.
It could have finished you.
He could have accidentally hit the hydraulics the wrong direction too and finished me off. And I had, I was black and blue on my ribs and my back, and
any days off out of that, or any days off?
You know what? I actually I didn't take any days off. No, but I did end up hurting my back later that season, and I ended up having to go home, which was a pretty unfortunate thing. And I always look back on that because growing up, like I said, my dad raised us with work ethic, and we never quit a job ever.
Put it in your dad's words: never quit an active job site.
Yeah.
Just keep going.
Yeah. And it was hard for me. It'll haunt me forever because I got tossed by a pot, and it was a previous injury from a car accident with Grace and I really messed up my back. I couldn't even walk right, and it was time for me to go. And the season was about a week from being done, and but it was my best friends out on the boat. So there was that act of not just only leaving a job, but leaving my best friends hanging, and so this is actually good for other people to think about too. That um it's always important to stick it out, but it's always important to think about your future and fishing is a very important job, very because it's a team effort, but what's also most important is your body, because you're gonna have that for the rest of your life in your future, and so still got things here and there that come back to me, and I always joke around about it with my friends, but that to me will wear on me for a long time because I'd never quit anything, um, as far as work goes, my whole life, and I had to walk off the boat, and that was a tough one.
It's tough when you're in a group like that. You become a team, and you rely on each other. It's family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
we really did rely on each other, and not only that, but we pushed each other too, to who was going to go the hardest, who was going to,
well, you're still young.
yeah, who was going to go the hardest, who was gonna do the most perfect at each job, and so when we were pushing each other, I felt like I was the one, and so I think for a lot of fishermen that goes through their head, I'm letting down the crew, or I'm I'm not, I couldn't hack it is a big word, and so it's just important that people realize that there are those deckhands, and Beaver used to say it all the time. There are those deckhands that just weren't made to be on the water. There's people who just weren't cut out for commercial fishing. They weren't cut out for life on the water, and there's just it's got to be in your DNA to some degree. But there's also those people who it is made, it is for them. It is in their DNA, and there's just times where you just gotta. There's times where you just gotta
push through.
It's time for you got to push through, and then there's times if you really are injured, where you just need to take a second and you need to evaluate what the cost is, what the long-term cost is, and so some people really get injured out pot fishing Bering Sea. It's no joke. People get injured all the time out gill netting.
There's no fishing that's a joke. I mean, any one of them,
and there's no
will kill you.
That's true. None of it. It all has to be taken seriously, and there is no fishing, and there is no species of fish, and there is no amount of fish that is more important than health and life of the crew.
Nope.
And so I think that's something too that is really important for people to contemplate and think about, and also people who wanted to get into fishing beforehand, that it is a very serious job and it is a dangerous job, and a lot of people want to do the dangerous job, but sometimes,
it's funny. The smallest thing can kill you when you're fishing. Put a net over. A wedding ring can kill you.
Yeah.
A wedding ring can kill you.
Absolutely.
The last 10 years I was married, I didn't wear one. I caught one on net.
Yeah, mine's once. Rubber. Mine's a little one of those, lifelong warranty rubber rings.
It's like the smallest thing can kill you.
And it happens in an instant. I've seen guys be in the wrong place in a seine net, and they get swept over with the seine net, and they're attached to the leads, and they're going down, and you have skiffs, 10 skiffs pulling that net up, and hopefully they get them up in time. It happens in an instant, just like it was out pot fishing, and it's usually really stupid mistakes. Just being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
It can be a beautiful day, sunny, and things happen.
Yeah, out long lining, it happens really easy when people are in the wrong place when you're setting on snap gear. It was all snap on gear, and you get a hook through the hand, and all of a sudden you're almost going over, unless you can cut it in time. So it's really good. It's really good when there's new guys on board to be able to surround them with experienced guys. And I look back at that when us three greenhorns hopped on Beaver Nelson's boat, the Nuka Point, and he had three greenhorns, and he had to look out for all of us, and the amount of energy that must have taken after running a boat now in a seiner for a handful of years. the amount of energy that must have taken to hire 3 greenhorns was
So
pretty
let's
outstanding.
move on to that. Getting the seiner.
So Grace and I were married for a couple of years, and we still are married, but we were married for a couple of years, and we got this boat, and my old captain Beaver Nelson told me that if you're going to get into fishing, Cameron, you should buy this boat. And it was the old Island Raider, which was his son's boat that he had built. Rob Nelson had it built in '89 by Cliff Calkins, who's passed away now, but a phenomenal genius boat builder. And so I talked. It was owned by a cannery at the time, and it took me a year to talk that cannery into selling it to me. Bought that.
That was E&E.
Yep, E&E. It was. E&E Foods, and I talked them into selling it to me. They sold it to me, and I got it at a fairly decent price for what it was, and all I had to do was get it ready to fish and put some sweat and hard work and RSW system into it. And I
when he says RSW, that's 20,000.
Yeah,
that's not sweat, hard work, and RSW.
Yeah,
20,000.
Yeah, I ended up putting about 60,000 into that boat before I got it up and going. So those of you who are thinking that you're gonna get a boat, you're gonna just be, it's what is the classic word that people like to use when there's a boat ready to go? Where they say turnkey, I think it is.
Turnkey,
ready
turnkey.
to go.
Yep.
Turnkey ready to fish. There's no vessel on the water that's turnkey ready to fish, in my experience.
Part of that, though, is because the captain that ran it knew what to do.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
And the captain that's buying it doesn't know what he did.
Yeah.
You get on and you buy a boat, you think it's speaking English, but it's German. You got to figure it out. It's not the same thing.
That's absolutely right. Not every boat talks the same. Some boats speak French, and it takes one, that one very special person who's been running the boat for the last 10 years to be able to.
They knew exactly. They knew every sound, every kink, every.
Yeah.
They're like, oh no, she's ready to go. Well.
Exactly. And so I passed on a lot of boats because they just weren't the right profile for me, and so we got the Island Raider, which we ended up changing the name to the Firefly.
Why?
That's my inner geek coming out in me. So there's a TV show called The Firefly.
One season.
Yeah, only one season.
One season.
Yeah, a huge.
I'm there with you.
Huge following on that season. Yes.
Bam.
Yeah,
I'm there with you.
High five to that. Yeah, one season, and it has a tremendous following. And
we never talked about that before, by the way.
Yeah.
We did not.
No, we didn't. No, we didn't actually. That came here right now. So I was Captain Mal, and so this a phenomenal TV show. So Grace and I were like, let's name our incorporation Serenity Inc. Let's name the boat Firefly. So our incorporation Serenity.
Hold on, gotta pause. Favorite quote from the TV show or the movie? Just we're going way off base here, guys. All right, I'm gonna give you mine while you're thinking about it. There's gonna be a whole lot of turbulence followed by either a big fucking bang or an explosion. We'll be fine.
What's that maneuver they did? It was a barn swallow. I love that. Where they did, like, we're gonna do a barn swallow. Yeah. Gonna do it, and I've always wanted to name a fishing maneuver. You know how every fisherman's, they got like a special set or a trick play. I always wanted to name a special set or a special, hook, that I do. I always wanted to name it a barn swallow. Yeah.
We're gonna barn swallow.
Yeah.
Omaha.
Yeah. I always say with the crew, whenever something really, drastic's going on, I always start saying like "Go Ram," this "Go Ram" thing, because everything's. You got to see the show. You got to see it. So.
Yeah, we got totally way off base there. We don't normally do that.
No.
Where are we at?
So, I seine the boat. First year ever seining, I seined Lower Cook Inlet. Phenomenal place by the way, to learn how to seine. Be able to learn how to lead a crew. Be able to learn how to understand current and climate and weather and rocks and snags and fish. And so I love Lower Cook Inlet. I love fishing there. My crew, my crew consisted of my wife Grace, my brother-in-law who was about 15, who was Grace's younger brother, and then a friend of ours, who came out, and they came out, and my wife was 7 months pregnant at the time.
Oh my God!
She was 7 months pregnant. This is how much of a stud my wife Grace is. She came out and she was 7 months pregnant during the fishing season, and she stacked corks. And you get these in seining, you get these net monsters, where you just like you pull up your purse rings and the whole leads and everything is just in a knot around your purse rings. And there was many times where we were all muscling on that. It took all of us to she's over there 7 months pregnant helping pull on a net monster, and a lot of times I just have her run hydraulics while we wrestled with it, but sometimes it took all of us, and she stuck it out all season, and then we had her baby that fall. But it was
How many kids you got now?
We have 3 kids. Yeah, our oldest is 4.
Strong.
Oh, she's all of our kids are like in the 5th percentile for height. My wife and I are both 5 foot, but she's built like an ox, just stacked. And so that's our oldest, Kaylin, and our second oldest is Valor, and he's just about
Valor.
3. Valor. He's our second oldest, and then our youngest is Arrow, and he's by far.
I saw him yesterday.
Yeah, he's a cutie. He's young, so we have them, and we take them out on the boat. But so she was pregnant with Kaylin at the time, and my crew, and this is actually good for new fishermen, people who are buying boats. It was probably a record year as far as how bad it was in Lower Inlet at the time. I haven't looked at the stats, in a while, but it was a really bad year. I mean, I don't think there was any boat. There was a few boats that had over 100,000 pounds, but there wasn't many, and we were right up in there, and luckily we caught some reds, but we had our mortgage payment to E&E Foods, and I called E&E because it was like October, and I called E&E like, hey, can I get our settlement check? And they responded, and this is really good for people to like get ready for. If you're wanting to get into fishing, you got to prepare for these moments. They responded by, you still owe us 20 grand. And I asked them, I set my pride down, on the table, and I asked them, I said, please, I just beg you to give me enough money to pay my crew. Whereas there's some people out there who probably wouldn't put their crew at the top, but I think it's really important that, to do that, people who are the sole reason for you be able to bring the net back on board. And so I said, please give me enough money to pay my crew, and they did. And not my wife. My wife was the crew, but just the 2 guys who weren't direct family to me. And so I paid my brother-in-law and I paid our friend, and that was it. So and I paid our crew, and then we used Division of Economic Development to refinance, which is a great program. And then we and from there it was only up, right? You can only go up from there.
We're about out of time though.
Oh, okay.
We're gonna have to come back and go again. But before we leave, obviously you're a young guy yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Have a great tender vessel, which we can't get into too much now because we're already out of time. What would you suggest for guys coming in now, young guys?
Guys coming into the fishery now. Okay, so I would say for deckhands, work hard. Get in. Don't be afraid to.
How do they get in though?
If you want to get in, I mean, I know.
They don't know.
If you really want to get in, make yourself rememberable. Walk the dock